right. Well, thank you for being here, Alex. To everybody that's watching from home and that's here, this is Alex Kimball Williams of Bad Alaskan, and I'm pumped to have you here because I'm a huge fan of your work. I think you do incredible music, but then you also help elevate artists in so many ways. So if you could talk to us a little bit about how you do some of that work and the passion behind the artistry.
Yeah, so I'm an electronic musician or protest musician, and protest to me is public art with a message. And so all of my work interrogates issues of social and environmental justice in Indian country predominantly, but also like I have a song about how beautiful black hair is and another song about how beautiful brown eyes are. And it's just about, so protest music typically serves, or protest in general typically serves three different purposes. It's usually about mobilizing, awareness building, or serving those who are already committed to the mission. And that's the third part's the area that I kind of live. And I bring traditional indigenous melodic and rhythmic motifs and just set them to contemporary instruments that we see here. And it's actually kind of fun working within the confines of this because these are 12-note scales. And so I'm doing a lot of pitch bending and things to kind of sound like traditional instruments. I have some traditional samples that I have from different settings. And yeah, I just really enjoy setting tradition and just being creative with it, and then bringing it to unexpected places too. So my favorite thing is when somebody's native and like we'll be at a bar or something and they'll be like, I recognize that. Is that a powwow drum? Is that like something? And I love that because they just don't expect to go out and be seen and feel comfortable like in that deep way. So I like doing that. So what people will hear is a lot of pentatonic scales, a lot of held out long notes, a lot of repetitions because the songs aren't going to have like a verse, bridge, chorus type of setup. And so I just enjoy kind of breaking the mold of song structure, composition, what is foreground and background. And I don't know, I have a lot of fun with it, but that's everything in a nutshell about being Bad Alaskan. I'm also Black and Alaskan, so that's my tribe is in the Aleut Islands.
Wow, that's incredible. I feel like there's a lot of knowledge there that you probably had to be trained at, or did you learn this all on your own? Like, where did you get even the idea to do this?
Yeah, it's a lot of listening. So, and I never studied music formally necessarily, like at the college level, but I did take a lot of classes and stuff, and just a lot of listening. And I also get a lot of inspiration from listening to elders and just kind of the because when you grow up speaking a different language, the intervals and the melody of how you speak is different. And so I like bringing that into and just kind of trying to embody that with some of the echo voice and like griot techniques and Alaskan hand drumming stuff that I'll bring in. Just kind of getting inspired by all of that. So it's mostly been listening and inspiration, but a lot of my songs that are deeply tied to environmental issues, like I have songs about climate change and domestic violence and things like that, came from doing a lot of community interviews. So I'm an oral historian trained in techniques of gathering information of that kind and doing my own family's oral history interviews and those of others in the community. So like my song about the one that's on the recent album, Red and Black, about climate change is actually after listening to interviews of elders and people in Louisiana and Grand Bayou and how they've been impacted after hurricanes. And so I just like enjoy listening, basically.
Wow. I'm reading a book that's by Robin
Walt Kimmerer. Yeah.
And I'm in the chapter where she speaks about the language and how the language of her people is to be alive, is to have animation. And in English, it's essentially you're speaking about things that are inanimate and essentially dead. We talk about things as it. And so it just made me remember that, music is a part of this creation that's consistently moving and evolving and has a life. And so I feel like, in a way, you're breathing in life as a human to something that, in the English language could feel like an it. Like the actual system is an it.
Yeah, and Robin's really cool. She's on the advisory council for so I am a project manager of a climate justice grant at Haskell.
Wow.
And so she's actually on our advisory council.
Oh,
I
my
love her.
gosh.
Yeah, she's awesome. But yeah, you're right. The word for art in my language is the same as the word for everything. It just means it's how you're living and acting. So like your moving is art, your eating is art, all of that.
Yes.
So, which I also enjoy in my work with the Kansas Arts Commission to broadening. I was part of the strategic planning initiative to broaden the definition of art to include culture and cultural demonstrations and things, which is really where I live and what I make. Because I get asked a lot, like, why is there community research, or certain things involved in like my writing process, but that is art.
Absolutely. I think the more that we can intertwine things like that, the more that people will sort of lean into questioning and doing research and figuring out about the cultures that have been here before we came in. So that's powerful.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you being able to bring some of that information to all of us, because I think talking about it is just going to bring more knowledge, more curiosity. I know you do a lot of work with children as well. So talking about curiosity, how do you feel like you have been able to maybe spread that to the children?
So I'm so glad that you brought up the word curiosity, because that's like, I have a 3-year-old, and that's like the only, if I instill nothing else in her, it's to be curious. But yeah, when I work with kids, so my whole practice is about sitting in controlled discomfort. So putting kids and people of all ages into improv situations where they're like dancing or writing a poem together, or doing music together, and getting them to sing in front of each other and move in weird ways, and just kind of getting them out of that very limited scope of comfort. Because one of those tenets of white supremacy culture is the right to comfort in certain things, and we all learn that stuff. And so just trying to break them out of that and get them used to advocating for themselves and moving without fear of like, you don't exist to be perceived kind of thing. And so by practicing doing this in front of their peers, this helps them grow up to be better advocates for themselves and the people and causes that they care about. And so it's kind of silly, like we'll be writing poetry or whatever, have them dancing or jumping on one foot and just different things, but as long as it's a safe environment for them to practice those coping skills and becoming resilient in situations that they may not feel comfortable in, because there's a lot that's uncomfortable. And if more people were challenging of that, so I think the other thing I really like about working with kids is, on the one hand, there's a lot of peer pressure and shyness, but there's also like some uninhibited, like they're down to come up here and do a bass line, or I just tell them, hey, any white notes or any black notes based on what the song is. And then people of all ages, I usually do a song, I'll do one tonight where people give me numbers, and I'll make that into the sequence that I'll just live make a song out of. So I think that it's interesting working with kids, because they'll come up on stage, or I'll tell them to do this tambourine, or just different things, and they're not afraid. I think it's really inspiring too for the adults in the space.
Yeah, we do programming for the children who are just a little neurodivergent, or have different accessibilities that they work with. And one of my favorite things about that program is that you see how children are able to sort of get weird, get loose and get weird and just expand and express themselves however it shows up in that moment. And as adults, we're told consistently to like be calm, be quiet, self-contain. And there's times where I just want to like scream and get weird and dance in weird ways. And so I hope that as we're talking about these things and people are able to expand their horizons, that we can create more networking and more spaces where you could just come up to stage and sing and, just be a little loosey-goosey with what we're doing. I think that's, I don't know, it just feels like that's the safe place to start going towards.
Yeah, I think people do dance a lot at my shows, depending on the song, cool. But they'll also like just sit or meditate or do yoga. So I really liked it at the Nelson Atkins last time. They brought out like blankets and pillows and stuff, and people were just like on the ground relaxing. And I thought that was so cool. I was playing on the ground too, so they could like feel the drums and the bass and some of the different things I was doing. I
can already imagine myself doing that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. But on the flip side, so I mostly play in like non-venues, right? So like public parks, just hospitals, just all kinds of places. And Yeah, I really like also taking this into maybe what you might think of as a traditional venue, like clubs and bars and stuff, because it's a little unexpected, but it's still viable there. I really like the kind of the blend of,
Yeah, and sometimes bars is where we most need someone to be able to sort of ground us, you know?
Those
I
have been
think
funny,
the buzzing, you can feel it at a bar, and so when somebody's playing something that just feels grounding, you're like, I remember this is probably where I should be and how I should be.
Yeah.
It's just more firm in myself.
Yes.
So that's really cool. Could you tell me a little bit about what you're working on currently?
Yeah, I work at Haskell, like I mentioned. I'm the project manager for Rising Voices Changing Coasts, which is a 20 million research project, and we're helping 4 different tribal communities, including in Puerto Rico and Alaska, Hawaii, just different places. We actually have a conference this month where we're going to have all the tribal leaders come, and I'm really excited about it. But yeah, it's the biggest research grant that a tribal college has ever received, and so it's just really groundbreaking, and we're able to do community-led work around food sovereignty, specifically in Hawaii. A lot of really great stuff in the Arctic because they have the permafrost thaw, and just their whole infrastructure is like fading because the ground is not frozen now. Just really, and I think it's cool as an Alaska native too to get this opportunity to work in Alaska in some kind of way, but still live in Kansas and stuff with my family.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I do that work at Haskell. I do a lot of stuff in the community. I co-founded Black Lawrence, which is a Black literature and arts collective. And we have about 40 members, and it's just if you're Black or an artist, you can join, and we just help each other. A lot of what we do is internal, like we'll be looking at each other's resumes or taking each other's headshots and like whatever. The headshot that's on the event page is from somebody in Black Lawrence.
That's a gorgeous one too.
I know, Leah Evans, just a quick plug. But she's really good. And then I also work at the Kansas Arts Commission as outreach specialist. I was the DEI team lead, but we had to change it up. And now I was basically doing outreach, basically community engagement and programmatic equity for Black and Native communities in Kansas. So it's not a huge stretch. But yeah, those are just a couple of things. But yeah, lots of things going on.
Gorgeous. I mean, you're doing everything. It feels like I don't even know where to begin with some of your work, but it's all incredible. And every time I look into your social media and you're able to share some of that information, I feel like I'm consistently learning.
Yeah, I really like sharing on there. Bad Alaskan LFK, I share pretty consistently, like every couple of days, just tips and tricks for artists supporting themselves in their creative practice. So that's kind of, there's a lot of generalizable skills in that too, just generally about careers, but I'm really passionate about that.
Yeah, well, it shows, and I really appreciate you doing it because I think that's a part of Heartland Song Network's mission is to consistently try to elevate artists and songwriters to whatever level they want to, right? Because you've shared before, your journey has looked different, and everyone's journey is going to look different. So the steps that they're going to take are going to look different. And so however we can help, we'll do it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I always like working with you guys. So,
well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to get to know you a little bit more, and I hope the conversations continue to happen. But I will go ahead and let you play your music so that we can enjoy what the people would like, okay?
Yeah, I take requests. So if there's something you really wanted to hear tonight.
Gorgeous. Well, thank you, everybody. Bad Alaskan.